You're listening to the Waypoint TV Podcast Network, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Hey everyone, this is Captain Steve Roger from Into the Blue TV. And as soon as I feel a little break from this heat, I know that hunting season is upon us. Actually, the first time I ever went hunting, a buddy took me. Wasn't my father or my grandfather. In fact, I took my father on his very first hunt. Well, Academy Sports and Outdoor Stores has everything to gear up for the field for less. Plus, you can shop a wide selection of ammo, shotguns, deer corn, rifle, feeder, game cameras, camo, and more from the brands you trust. Text HUNT24 to 22369 to take $20 off a $100 purchase when you shop hunting supplies at academy.com. Need a hunting license? Pick it up in store while you're shopping.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
All right, we are here and we are sitting with Joe Elliston of Initial Ascent. Joe, can you go ahead and introduce yourself for everybody listening?
Yeah, so my name's Joe Elliston, one of the co-founders over here with Initial Ascent. We launched Initial Ascent to the public in 2018, but yeah, it's been a fun run here over the last 6-7 years, trying to get this pack out in the system a little bit more, people more familiar with it. But we're based here in Idaho, and just a little bit about me, my background. I kind of grew up in the Midwest and did a lot of different types of hunting in the Midwest. Didn't do a lot of big game, but we did a lot of upland game, a lot of quail, a lot of pheasant, but mostly waterfowl. That's really what I fell in love with as a kid, was waterfowl hunting. And then did some big game, but not a lot till I moved out west. And would always make a trip up north, kind of in your neck of the woods, up to South Dakota, a little further north, to go do the pheasant hunting. And then I would say in the mid 90s, left Kansas and took a job with Black & Decker and moved to Las Vegas. And that was, needless to say, a pretty big culture change for somebody growing up in Kansas. I'd never been west of the Rockies, and but Vegas was good to me. I was there for a year and then transferred around. I did a whole bunch of different roles for Black & Decker and went through a bunch of acquisitions. I've been through, I think, 3 now, maybe 4 over the years, and just had a lot of great opportunities working for some fantastic brands. But moved up to Idaho around 2004 and never looked back. I went on my first backcountry hunt in 2005, and it just changed the whole way I look at hunting. And I got addicted, man. I fell in love with backpacking at the same time. Really probably felt my first true love was backpacking, even more so than the hunting side of it. Because growing up in Kansas, I mean, we all know how flat Kansas is, right? Not a whole lot of mountains around there. And once I got out west, I was just hooked, man. It was like every weekend we were in the mountains, trying new trails, exploring new high lakes, just seeing new country that just never had an opportunity to see in my life. And that led to getting into the hunting side of it, which I'm sure we'll probably talk a little bit more about that. And just, it just fell in love with it. So the West is where my heart's at, and my happy place is up in these mountains that are surrounding us down here in Idaho, or over here in Idaho.
That's awesome.
So,
to me, in my head, though, Kansas reminds me of like a miniature version of the Badlands. It's way smaller hills, but it's super hilly.
Yep.
And then it's like you go up into Nebraska and all of a sudden it goes, what happened to all the hills? Where's all the trees?
Yeah. Yeah, you get on that highway, man, it's a long stretch of nothing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's we love it out here. It's got everything that we want, and this is home. It's where we raised our kids, and it's where we're staying.
I have been to Boise one time for 12 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Made a big impression on you then.
I was, so I've hitchhiked thousands of miles around the country. And
boy.
and one time I was stuck in Idaho for 12 hours and nobody would give me a ride. And and I had this crazy guy walk up to me and he had the most wild eyes I've ever seen, and I'll never forget it. And he looked at me and he's like, "This is dangerous. Somebody could kill you." And I was like, I think if anybody's gonna kill me, it's you, man.
Yeah, that's freaky, man.
But no, I made it out. I actually this is gonna tie in very nicely here. I got a ride with an Irish truck driver, and
man.
and he hated Kansas so much that he talked about Kansas for like probably a good 45 minutes about how much Kansas sucks.
Oh
and,
man.
and then his GPS that was mounted on his dashboard there was stuck on Kansas.
No way.
Oh
Yeah.
no wonder he hated
That's
it. Like it's permanently fixed.
Sick of looking at it.
But anyway, kind of funny there, the tie in the Kansas and Idaho thing.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to come back, man, because Idaho is a fantastic place.
Oh yeah, no, I
Yeah.
I really really want to go back and explore it. I've never had that opportunity to, but yeah, I have nothing against the states. It looks awesome.
Yeah, it's good, man. It's good. But that's a funny story.
Yeah. So, anyway, you are you gonna get in any good hunts this year in Idaho or elsewhere?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's so many opportunities just over the counter here, which is one of the great things about Idaho. I don't remember what the statistic is because I haven't seen it for a while, but when we moved out here back in 2004, about 80, I think it was 85% of the state was open to the public. I mean, that's how much land you had for hunting. Coming from Kansas, where there is no public land to speak of, it really gives you opportunities just for over the counter hunts. So I didn't put in for draws this year. Had a couple knee surgery setbacks that I just didn't know what was going to go down with it. So it would be, if I put in this year for sure, I would have drawn the most epic hunt ever, right? It would have happened. So I'm going to roll the dice next year on it. But yeah, I'll do some. We're going to do a hunt here. There's a gentleman by the name of Chris Young. I don't know if you guys know him or not, but he drew an amazing bull elk tag that kicks off October 15th. And we're actually going to go back in. Vortex is going to be a part of it. They're going to film it. And so we're going to spend some time out with him. So I'm going to give up some deer hunting because our deer season kicks off around there for general. And so we're going to spend some time doing that. But I'll probably get in a little bit later on a deer hunt, and then I'll focus on rifle elk in November is kind of the plan right now.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So
I'm jealous of your elk.
what I find funny
man.
though is so many people out west are like, oh yeah, I don't even really hunt whitetail, or if they do, it's like so nonchalant and just in passing, like, oh yeah, I killed 4 whitetails, no big deal, but look at my bull elk, and they'll show you the bull on the wall, but they don't even care about the whitetails.
Right. Yeah.
And out here in the
that's a true
Midwest, it's like
statement.
whitetail is king, but
Yeah.
it's just funny.
Yeah. So it's interesting because certain parts of the state, if you go up northern part of the state, even kind of the central part, you do get into a lot of whitetail here. There's muley mixed in there as well, and it probably changes the further north you go. But you get up around, really not that far north. You get up around Lewiston and that area, you start to get into a lot of whitetail. Down south here, it's all mule deer, and it's the mule deer down here. The whitetail will actually push the mule deer out. They are definitely the dominant of the two, which is crazy because the muleys they're pretty massive down here. But they'll push the whitetail out. I mean, the whitetail will push them out.
My buddy Troy up in Coeur d'Alene, he gets on some really, really massive mountain deer up there, whitetail. I mean, just amazing whitetails. And there's some of them, he showed me pictures that it's like he'll have that deer on camera for 4 or 5 years before he'll even pursue it. It's insane.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of country for them to hide, no question, especially up in that area. I mean, it's thick, really thick up in there.
Is there
So-
any difference at all in the flavor between whitetail and a mule deer?
I think it all has to do with what they're eating.
Yeah.
Really, I think that's really what it boils down to. I've heard, and I haven't eaten a ton of whitetail. I've eaten some. Mule deer tend to be a little bit more sagey, but that's typically the terrain that they're in, right?
Mhm.
And the whitetail I've had, they love the corn. They're always around the corn, and they taste pretty dang good. It's hard to beat a whitetail on the table. That's for dang sure.
Tell him, Clay. Tell him.
No, I mean, we've talked about it too much on the podcast.
Clay hates whitetails that have been in agriculture.
Oh, really? You hate the flavor?
He despises the meat.
I just, it's all right. Everybody is welcome to their opinion. It's just my opinion is I like a whitetail that I purposely like to hunt places where there's zero agriculture around.
Really? Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, he likes it where it's all
cedar
swamp bucks with nothing but birch and cedar in their system.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just a personal preference. I like the way they take. I like that flavor. And who did we just talk to? We talked to another hunter just the other day, and he was saying how that was Greg. He was saying that you get cut like with a butter knife through some of the meat when it's like real corn fed.
Yeah.
And that's true in my experience. Like the southern Michigan deer are like largely corn fed, and it just tastes different.
It does.
It just tastes like way, way different.
That's
that's
why
you say that.
Yeah, it's like grass-fed beef versus.
So I was just gonna say.
Yeah. There's a difference. I don't mind either of them. It doesn't matter to me. But unfortunately, all the deer around me at some point have seen quite a bit of agriculture. There's no way around it.
Yeah. Well, Michigan is now giving out $5 tags all year because they are in kind of like a freak out about the deer population here.
Is that only for the southern, or is that the whole state?
So southern Michigan, and so I'm really hoping to get my son and me down to southern Michigan just to shoot extra deer, which I know that it's not going to be like the best, my favorite, but I'm still going to go down and try.
Hang on, though. I have a lot of questions now, Clay, because I did not know about this. Are you saying it's $5 tags for resident and non-resident, or just resident? Is it way cheaper for non-resident?
I think that it is just for residents, but I'm sure it'll be way cheaper also for non-residents. I haven't looked into it though.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't terrible when I bought tags a couple of years ago, but I mean, we'll see. I don't know. I got a question for you though, Joe, because I know Idaho is changing their rules pretty soon. Do you have any insight on that? Do you know what kind of the word on that is? Because the whole non-resident thing was like a online waiting room, and then you get on and you like try and get your tag that you want, and if it's out, you get one more choice, and then you get booted out and have to go back through the waiting room. Do you know what that's going to be now?
I don't, man. I haven't followed it close enough, but I can tell you, I've heard a lot of people not happy about it, the changes, and them, because it's even for the locals, things have changed quite a bit, right? For any of the draws, and you used to be you could go out and get a sawtooth tag pretty dang easy for elk, and now it's like that just doesn't happen, right? So it's with the amount of people that have moved in here over the last 5-6 years, it's just this place is different. You can't hardly find a trailhead that doesn't have 5 or 6 vehicles parked on it. So it's a different feel. So they've got to make some changes, to try to slow things down, I would think. Because it's not the Idaho of a decade ago, 20 years ago by any means.
Do you think like COVID shaped that to where a lot of people started taking interest in the whole hunting aspect, and then also like people moving, obviously the freedom of, our freedoms that we have, or if we don't like a state, we can always go to a different state. And I think that tends to happen a lot too. Do you think that kind of played a big part into that?
It played a huge role of it. And then I think just companies changing their philosophy on remote, right? Has changed people's ability to live in places they would rather be at, right? So, we've had a huge influx of folks from Oregon, Washington, California, and I get it. If I lived in California, I wouldn't stay there. I'm not going to pay those kind of taxes. I mean,
right.
No way. I'm going to get out of there as well. And what better place to go to than Idaho? So I don't fault any of the folks wanting to do it, to better themselves and put themselves and their families in a better environment. It's interesting though, the impact that it's had on the local economies, both favorably and negative. The infrastructure has been, it's a decade behind. You just can't keep up with the number of people that are moving in. But I do think all of those things, COVID certainly exposed people to what if, what is it like? And a lot of people started exploring, and good on them for doing it. But it changes things. You're going to see hunters pretty much everywhere you go. There's a place that we bear hunt quite often, and it's 8-9 miles back in there in some places, and we would never ever see people. And now it's like you're out there hunting, and then a group of just hikers come out of 10 or 15 people.
Oh,
and it's just
jeez.
like, just blows your mind, right?
Blowing all the
So
deer right out of the valley. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yes. It's funny, man. We were out there one time. I was out there with my son Brody, and this was probably 4 years ago, so it's been a little while ago. And we're sitting up. We camped. I think we were about 6 miles back in where we camped, and then we were another mile and a half or two in, and then we were way up. And we're sitting up there, just perfect spot. And then all of a sudden, there are these 4 people that come out, and then they get on the hillside, one over from us, and they see us, and they start racing up and down the hill, it was just like, this is too weird that this is happening. Right here in the middle of where we're hunting bears, you got people doing tag on the side of the mountain. So yeah, you get all kinds.
That's
Like
That's the
eight
joys. It's
miles
public
in?
land. Public land, they can do what they want.
8 miles
So,
deep. I could see you doing that, Clay.
Me?
Just like
No
randomly
way.
be like, hey, you guys want to go like way back out and play tag
Play
for like 2
tag?
days?
I don't think so, man. That sounds like something like Mr. Beast would do or something.
Or
you know?
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of bear were you guys hunting? Black bear?
yeah, black
Oh,
bear.
okay. I didn't
Yep.
know if like it is
No.
grizzly is not, you can't shoot grizzly
No.
there, right? Yeah.
No, it was close. I mean, it made it a long ways, and I think they actually issued a tag to one guy probably 6-8 years ago, and then politics got involved, and that never
Mhm.
happened. So, the grizzly population certainly continues to climb. There's no question about it. You see it in Montana, you see it in Idaho. They say that there's been grizzly as far as all the way into the Sawtooth, and yeah, it would make sense for them to travel into there. I don't think it's a sustainable population out there yet, but there's a lot of grizz in the state of Idaho. You get over
Idaho,
closer.
Wyoming, Montana.
Oh, yeah.
It's insane, like the amount of encounters people that I know have had.
Yeah.
Like close encounters, alleged attacks, stealing carcasses, all
Mhm.
kinds of stuff that, I mean, if the population truly is that big, it's only a matter of time before it actually gets into, and I've even heard people say that they've seen grizzlies out in the breaks of Montana. And if that's the
Right.
case, I mean, how long before they're in North and South Dakota and Minnesota as well? I mean, that could be within the next 10 years. That could possibly happen, which
Yeah.
kind of crazy. But at the same time, if they're thriving that much, it makes you wonder why they haven't been they don't need to be protected anymore. They're not endangered. Clearly, they're not
Right.
endangered. Maybe they don't need to be hunted yet, but at least take them off the federal protection list. They're thriving, which
Yeah,
doesn't
they are
make sense to
thriving.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't they reintroduce them into Washington last year?
Ooh, I
If I
don't know
remember right,
about
in the
that.
Cascades, if I remember right. I could be wrong on that, but there was a lot of talk about it, and then for some reason my brain's telling me that they did reintroduce them over there. I could be wrong on that though. Somebody will probably correct me, but I think they did.
Man, I don't.
You got either of you guys ever heard about the controversy about whether or not there was a plains grizzly that was a different species than the one, and it's now extinct? They because there's a lot of writing about it in the Lewis and Clark expedition.
Yeah.
There was grizzlies on the plains, but everybody referred to them as white bears, and they were definitely the size of a grizzly, not a black bear, but they had like white fur.
Interesting.
Yeah,
It
but
would
then
make
some
sense.
people say that they're just the same species, just living on the plains, just
Yeah.
like a color morph.
That'd be interesting, though.
Either way, I have a question for you, Joe.
Sure.
If you were able to shoot a grizzly, do you guys have any packs that could hold all that meat?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, we do. There's a guy, one of our guys that we're really, he's one of these guys that just hunts like nobody's business. He's a guide. He goes up into Alaska every year, and he does a float that's 60 miles, ends up in the Arctic Ocean.
Wow.
His name's Dan Whitmus. If you guys haven't ever heard of him, you should go check him out. This guy, he's on next level. But Dan has packed out mini grizzly with our packs, and he sends me pictures all the time. I'll shoot them over to you guys, but absolutely, our pack will carry out a 10-foot grizz, no problem. It's a heavy load. The problem's going to be for the person carrying it, but the pack will do it. And that's one of the things with our pack system is, we really try to design it to carry heavy loads more comfortably. That's ultimately what we set out to do. And you talk to somebody like Dan, he just sent me a bunch of texts the other day. He did a doll sheep. It was 12 miles, 23 river crossings. He packed out the whole doll in one trip.
Dude,
this guy's legit.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a legit dude. But yeah, I can send you some shots that you'll just be shocked. I mean, this head's this big, right? Just sitting on top of the pack. I mean, it's an amazing picture.
Now I feel like a wuss just carrying out whole whitetail, in my pack, recording them up and just making one trip with a whitetail. And here this dude is 23 river crossings later.
Oh man, he's like no other. I mean, there's guys, you think of somebody like a Dave Baronio, right, that packs off, 20 plus elk a year. Or you think of somebody like, Lampers or Call. These guys are just next level in what they do. I put Dan at that level, and in some cases higher in some ways.
Yeah.
He's a beast. He weighs $160 too. I mean, amazing that he can do what he does. Yeah. Crazy.
Can you explain to me so how do you make a pack? Like, is it situated at a different place on the back? Is there, is that all?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Joe. I mean, this is going to be a long answer, Clay, but it's a good one.
Yeah, it is a long one. I'll try not to get too geeked out on it, but really, when we started down the journey, we started in 2015 with that question: how do we do this? How do we carry heavy loads more comfortably? Because Dennis and I had tried just about every pack on the market, and every pack that you try, there's things that you like and things that you don't like, but it was consistent that it just hurt when you had a lot of weight on it. So we started with an engineering firm actually over at Boise State and leveraged their tech help division, which would part you up with student engineers plus engineers so you could get a reduced rate. That's where we started. We spent about a year and a half with them, and we literally, Clay, we white sheeted it. There was no, this is what we want, this material. We white sheeted as to, hey, what is going to help us accomplish this? And we tried all kinds of materials, both on paper and reality of talking through and actually trying different things out. Ultimately, we landed on carbon fiber composite blend, and that's kind of a tongue twister. But if we did straight carbon in our frame, you wouldn't have any flex, right? It's super strong, but it can't handle a shock. So we actually have 6 different materials in the frame. And we have 19 layers in some areas on the frame, depending on how we need to reinforce it. So we went through this process with BSU. It took us to a point, and then we worked with another engineering firm for about 6 to 8 months, and then ultimately we ended up with a third engineering group that actually manufacture our frame today. But there was so many trial and errors. We went through 14 different generation designs before we ever launched the product to say, this is going to do what we set out to do. So it was a lot of trial and error, getting the right shape. The last probably generations, I want to say, roughly right, probably around generation 8 to about, 6 to about 9 or 10 was just a lot of focus on getting the shape right. So it would follow the curvature of the spine so that it would force the weight into the hips and help, with the load lifter system, the way we designed it with 3 different load lifters, we wanted to be able to get the weight off the shoulders as well. But we also wanted to be able to kind of really protect the lumbar area, because that's an area that what you do is, when you get a heavy load, naturally you're going to lean forward because weight's going to go this way. So you're going to go forward to compensate. So we took all of these things into consideration as we were designing this frame, and then we just tested the heck out of it. And each generation we got better and we got better and better. The last probably 4 generations focused on 2 things. One, the materials was huge. Getting the fibers to go in the directions that we wanted them to go to perform in that part of the frame the way we needed it to, right? So, for example, we could actually take the carbon fiber, we could go one direction with it, or we could go another direction. We could crisscross it or go 3 different angles with it. We could actually change the angles of the fibers as well. So this is literally the most technically advanced frame. It takes us 4 hours to make one frame. It's unbelievable that what goes into it. And ultimately it's a 19-ounce frame that I've got guys that put over 300 pounds on it.
No way.
Which is just unbelievable. Yeah. And the way we designed a lot of, if you think about, we wanted flex in certain areas, right? Because you don't want to feel like you got a board against your back. So when you're moving through deadfall, you want to be able to twist and turn. When you're pulling back your bow, you want to be able to twist and turn. You want to have torsion flex. You got to have flex built into that frame. But at the same point, there's certain areas where we don't want any flex. We want this thing to be rigid. So with carbon fiber, if the analogy that our engineer uses, when he kind of describes is, you think about a diving board, right? Diving board goes like this all day long. You turn that diving board on its side, that thing's not going to move. And carbon fiber, the way we lay up the carbon fiber allows us to do that. So that's literally a Reader's Digest version, but it had to do with everything with designing the shape of it to get that. And then the materials. And the materials were tough, because it's literally like baking a cake without a recipe is really what you were doing. And that took us 3.5 years to figure that recipe out. So we launched it 2018. That was Gen 14. We're on Gen 19 now. So we've continued to make some minor tweaks over the years, but nothing major.
Yeah. I've been running mine since, I think 2020. I had a Mystery Ranch. I don't remember which one it was. It was like a 5K-ish, 4.5K, something like that. Anyway, I had it. I didn't like it. Could never really dissipate the load to where it felt comfortable. You were constantly adjusting things because either one was too tight or one kept loosening up on me. And I went to the Western Hunting Summit, and I was talking with one of the guys that's now my friend, Justin, and I was talking to Ryan a little bit about it, and he's like, man, I'll tell you what. And then, of course, Mark Livesey was there, and I was talking to Mark, and Mark's like, the first, because I think I went to like the second year that they had the summit, or maybe the second year. And the first year, I think you and Dennis both attended, maybe, or
Dennis was at
or
that
Dennis
one,
and his son.
Yeah.
And Dennis's son, they were post-holing snow on the way up, and everybody was like, "Man, I really don't want to post-hole on the way down." And his kid jumps on the pack and is riding down his pack down the side of the mountain and like hitting little shrubs sticking up out of the snow and everything else, and everybody's like, man, that was a badass pack they had. So right away when I got off the mountain, I wasn't even out of Montana yet, and I was looking and ordered up an initial Ascent, and I've been rocking it ever since. Whitetail hunting. I've been hauling out. I have the 2K, the 4K, and I think maybe the 6K. I've got the whole set of them. And honestly, the only one I really use, because it's mostly whitetail hunting, is I use the 2K a lot. I love the horseshoe zipper on it. I've hauled out entire deer either inside of it, or if I can't get the quarters in it too, hang them on the saddle horns on the sides, on the load lifters. And just, it's amazing what I've done with that pack. Not to mention, like, if I have to hunt on the ground and crouch myself in, I take that pack and wedge it up against a tree and then use it as a recliner too. Like, it works great. And it's funny to think, like, the iterations that have come out since then, still loving it. And I've beat the dog snot out of that pack. There's been times where it's dark and you're tired and just disgusted after a hunt or whatever, or you're hurrying up because you want to start trailing a deer. I've taken that pack and just tossed it right out of the tree to hurry up and get down. Nothing wrong with it ever. It's amazing how much of a beating that thing's taken from me. If my wife knew how I treated it, she'd probably never let me buy something else again. But blood all over it. I've taken it. I took your lead on that one, Joe. How Joe, he pretty much just rips the pack right off the frame and throws it in the washing machine. Zero care. Zero care given whatsoever. And I've done that, and it actually comes out pretty good. So I was impressed with.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys are making me want to get one of these things.
It's the last pack you'll ever own. I'm going to be honest. Like, the amount of thought that these two have put into it just goes to show you, like, the ingenuity, the American spirit, everything. It truly embodies that, because innovation started, like you said, from a blank sheet of paper, and they went to something that's absolutely fantastic, durable. It's made in America, right? It embodies everything, the values and everything, and the materials and the quality are really there. Like, it's amazing. So I'm not trying to inflate anything here, like prop you guys up, but I mean, that's the truth of the matter.
Thanks for sharing that. And I think it's, we really do look at it as an investment, right? I mean, these things are not inexpensive. You heard me say, it takes 4 hours to make a frame. That's not cheap to do that. And we make all of our frames over in Rexburg, Idaho. We always have. And, we have no plans of changing where we manufacture our frames. But we wanted to build something that lasted a lifetime. And people say, oh, really? Is it going to last? Well, Dave Baronio, who you guys all know, Dave came up with the idea of carrying the quarters on the sides, right? Dave will literally pack out 20 plus elk a year. For most people, that's like 3 or 4 or 5 lifetimes, just that alone, right? Mm-hmm. And Dave will run the same pack for 2 or 3 years. And we take care of Dave. He's a huge part of our team and has always been a huge supporter of us. So we come out with something new, we'll hook him up with that. But it's not because it's failing. That guy continues just to rock it. And 20 elk a year, if he does that for 2 or 3 years, that's 60 elk on a pack system. That's a lot of weight, man. So it's a lifetime. We do a lifetime warranty on it.
Yeah.
So it's a one and done.
I like all the little changes and tweaks that you guys have made to like the pockets and stuff over the years. I still struggle. I still got the original pockets.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If they're not beat up, I'm not going to get rid of them. It's one of those things. So the other ones have a zipper, 2 zippers on it to make it a lot easier to close one-handed. I definitely have to reach around and crossbody, you know what I mean, to get the zipper to work, but it still functions. So it's like, if it's not broke, why am I going to fix it? Why am I going to replace it when I'm still using it? It carries my spare release, carries my cord for my pulling up my bow and everything else. There's no reason. It's amazing the stuff that I've used it for. And even right now, it's in the passenger seat of my car with on the floorboard on the passenger seat with a 30-pound sandbag in it right now, and just the pannier system, and I'm using it for my rucking.
Well, that's a great training tool.
I mean, I got a question. Can you stuff a whole beaver in it?
You could probably stuff about 20 beavers in it, Clay.
I just want to know, because like sometimes I'll trap and I'll be a mile or 2 out. I've had to carry beaver like that, and that's a pain in the butt, man. You're like putting them, like switching it. They're all floppy, and I'm just trying to think like, wow, a nice backpack could be nice to like have a beaver.
Actually, that would be a great way to do it. Especially like put the 4K pack on with the pannier underneath to hold all your traps or something. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd work well for you, man, for sure.
I've come up with all kinds of different like little mods and stuff I've done to the pack. My pack.
Yeah.
And just little things, or had another dude I met at the hunting summit. He doesn't, he's not super huge on social media or anything like that, but him and I have kept in touch, and he's always sewing things. He made his own teepee shelter, made all kinds of stuff. And I was like, hey, I really want this thing to heat up my meals. Right. And like put my Mylar bag in a pouch to like keep it warm.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh yeah, I'll make a couple different iterations. Sent me like 2 different ones. I'm like, oh, this is cool. And then on the same time, I'm like, hey, you think you could make this? And he's like, absolutely. Like a little tourniquet pouch for it that goes right on the shoulder strap and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Man, people are good with that stuff. It's mind blowing what they can whip out.
And then I actually came up with some products to hang my tree stand, platform, not tree stand, but my platform for saddle hunting, and it goes right on my straps. And then I take, which are actually like your cinch down straps for the load.
Yeah.
I use those for cinching down my climbing sticks and all the other stuff.
Okay.
So it works pretty good. It's something that I've definitely loved using over the years. And my problem now is if I had to get rid of it, or like you know what I mean? Nothing would compare to what like I've gone through with that pack to try and go back and use something else.
Yeah, you've definitely put it to use, man. No question. That's awesome.
You got something to say, Clay?
No, I'm just sitting here just thinking like, man, I got to get one of these backpacks.
No,
I don't even pack out like big animals, but you guys are like, it's like I'm part of the podcast, but I feel like I'm in an infomercial, and I'm like, they've got me.
I don't even know why. Like, I'm not trying. Then that's the thing. It's just like, it's so it's one of those things you can hear me talk about it, but until you put it on and try it yourself, you won't know. You won't know. And I think that was the biggest thing for you guys for the longest time, is just the word wasn't out there. But I've noticed you guys like exponentially have grown in popularity, and more people are like, "Hey, have you seen those initial Ascent packs?" And I'm like, "Dude, I've been wearing one since 2020. What do you?"
Yeah,
I know them. Joe, you remember I told you about them? You never listened to the original episode, But it's funny. But earlier we were talking, and we don't need to like just beat it home into people's heads. But if you want a pack, go out and get one. You know what I'm saying? But let's kind of talk a little more hunting, because I want to hear.
Sure.
We were talking a little bit and alluded to earlier on duck hunting, and I didn't know like that was such a big part of your past. And Clay loves duck hunting. I personally, I could do without it for the rest of my life.
Oh man, it's so much fun. I miss it, because the duck hunting back in Kansas, again, this is a long time ago, so there wasn't much pressure. But that's just what we did. I think all through high school, my buddies and I, we'd finish up school and we'd head south down to Parsons, Kansas, or we'd, if we were going to go further away, we could go over to Neosho, Kansas, or go out to the central part. So we did a ton of duck hunting, and never fought for space or, setting decoys out and worrying somebody's going to set up right next to you. Funny story, when we launched Initial Ascent, in the back of my brain, I'm like,
This episode is brought to you by United Airlines. When you want to make the most of your vacation, book with United. They're an airline that cares about your travels as much as you do. United is transforming the flying experience with Bluetooth connectivity, screens, power at every seat, and bigger overhead bins to help fit everyone's bag. And with their app, you can skip the bag check line, get live updates, and more. Change the way you fly. Book your next trip today at united.com.
I've never carried decoys comfortably. Right?
That's true too.
Decoys suck. I don't know anybody that likes to carry decoys, because they're awkward. You got a lot of them, and the bags always hit you in the back of the legs, right? It's just so when you're packing decoys in, and back in Kansas, it wasn't a lot of river fishing, so it was big lakes, and you're hiking a long ways. I always knew someday, man, we're going to do something. So we actually had a decoy hauler back for Initial Set, and I absolutely love it. Matter of fact, I just brought a prototype in for one of the guys that works for us. We stopped selling it probably 3 years ago because it just never took off. But I think, again, kind of Luke, to your point, we weren't known well back then when we launched it, and just for guys that are trying to get into the system, they had to buy the frame, the shoulder straps, the whole 9 yards. It was a lot of money. But guys that are into our system now, we're getting a lot of guys coming to us now saying, "Hey, you guys gonna ever do that decoy bag thing ever again?" Because the videos and stuff still exist. And so we actually had a phenomenal decoy bag. That thing is a freaking amazing. But I brought a prototype in for a young guy that works for us. His name's Cody, because he's a big waterfowler, and he's been frothing at the bit, wanting something. And so I surprised him here this morning with an old prototype. But I love waterfowl hunting. The place we actually bought our house here in Idaho, we bought it close to a refuge, to where I can literally walk out my front door, walk down the road, and walk through some private ground, and we're on the lake duck hunting. That was a big reason why we moved there, and we've hunted a lot of ducks and killed a lot of ducks out here at this Deer Flat Refuge. But it's just, I've always trained dogs, always had dog. I had a Chessie before, I had a lab here recently. Unfortunately, we had to put down last December. Haven't replaced him yet. But I would say duck hunt for me, it's up there, man. I love it, man. I love it.
That's Clay. Clay loves duck hunting too, and I don't get it. But the one thing I can say is I have never had a day to where it's just been like an amazing, like, just they're locked up and coming in, and there's 1,000 of them, and you just sky blasting because you're going to hit them. I've never had that. Maybe that's why. I don't know. But then the other thing is it's like I could shoot however many ducks a day, get a limit, which might be only like 6 ducks or whatever for whatever's flying that day. And then I could go sit in a tree and spend 4 hours and take home 100 pounds of meat. To me, just the experience is different. I don't know. Plus, I just love the solitude of sitting by myself versus, I mean, maybe if I had better friends, maybe that's the issue.
Well, I tell you, so I did a duck hunt, and I would put this at the top of the list of duck hunts that I've ever done, is went on the Great Salt Lake. And we were there in January, I believe. This was many, many years ago. And I'm going to try to go do this hunt next year with my brother. But we took off on airboats, and they go through these canals to get out to the actual Great Salt Lake. And it was like 6 degrees out, so everything's frozen, right? And you're just screaming in these airboats, and that's an experience just in itself. But screaming across that on ice, and then you get out, and then you get into getting close to the lake area, and you get to a point where you could just see, and it was like Lord of the Rings type out there. I mean, it's epic out there. But we're screaming across. We're all bundled up. You're wearing, ear protection because the boat's so loud. And it was freezing cold, but we're just flying out there, and we're probably going, I don't know, 25, 30 miles an hour, if not more. And you could just see this ring out there, way out in the distance. And I'm sitting there just looking at it like, what the heck is that? Well, then it dawned on me, that's the salt water, so it turned to water. And we're just screaming straight at it. And I'm like, so you start to brace for impact, right? But as we're flying out there, across the ice, I see these statues like every 50 yards, all the way around the edge of the ice. And I'm trying to take all this in because it's just an epic experience. Well, then it dawns on me, those are bald eagles. So we go flying out there, and then I'm kind of bracing like this, waiting to hit that water, and you hit it and you don't even feel it. You just keep cruising. And we get out to an area, we get out there quite a ways, and he turns off the boats, and we're gonna hunt out of these coffin. They're called coffin boats, and they're literally, they just sit right above the water line. So you set these down. Well, the crazy thing is you step off into the Great Salt Lake, and you're out in the middle of this lake, and it's only like 18 inches deep. You look at that thing, you're thinking like, this is a massive deep, but no, it's like 18 inches, which is just weird in itself. Then you set these coffin boats down, and then we put out probably 300 plus silhouette decoys and probably a couple hundred decoys. I mean, it was a spread like nobody's business. And then we lay down in these coffin boats, and you're just literally laying, you got a little backrest, so it's comfortable. It's kind of like a blind. You're laying there, but the water's like right here with you, right? So if you move much, you get wet, but it's all right. You're just kind of chilling there. And oh my gosh, the amount of teal that came in was insane. So I mean, it was unbelievable how many birds were coming in. They were constantly coming in. But what those eagles would do, you'd hit a duck. If the dog didn't get out there, if you didn't get out there quick enough, that eagle would swing, fly down and grab that duck. Oh, and they probably took, I don't know, that day I bet they got 5, 6, 7 ducks from us.
Okay.
But man, that is at the top of the list of duck hunts, is going on that Great Salt Lake.
See, now that sounds cool. I'd do that. If somebody was like, hey, you want to go? I mean, somebody said, hey, you want to go to Nebraska and sit in the middle of nowhere in a field and only one hotel in the next 100 miles around. And I did that for snow geese. Yeah. So I'm not saying that if somebody said, hey, let's go to Utah and go duck hunting in the Great Salt Lake and sit in a coffin boat and have eagles steal my ducks, I'd be like, all right, I'm in. If somebody asked me if I wanted to go to freaking Argentina or Chile or wherever they blast 1,000 teal a day and it doesn't even put a dent in them, I'd probably do that too. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah. Or even dove hunting down in Argentina. That looks pretty neat too. But
that's on the bucket list. One of these days, that's going to happen.
How easy is it to get down to Argentina to hunt, though? Do you have to go through a lot of
So you don't bring firearms, you don't bring ammunition. The only thing you do is passport and fly down, and then you get to take your meat back with you.
Okay.
That's it.
So somebody else is supplying you with your weapons?
Yep. You just show up, and it's like a 5-star resort, just total luxury the whole time, extravagance, and you just get to go out and just blast, and then come back, and it's just a bunch of different Michelin star meals, and you're in a luxury resort pretty much.
No way.
Oh yeah,
That sounds
it's pretty
that
cool.
sounds a lot like hunting in England or something.
Oh,
like
well.
somebody like holds your gun for you as you're like,
Here, sire.
sire, shoot the ducks. I see them coming.
Yeah.
Or if they were saying it in Argentinian Spanish, allí vienen los patos.
Yeah.
Well, they're handing you multiple guns, I guess, down there. It sounds like because the barrels get so hot, they're swapping guns out on you. But,
no way.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
crazy, man. From what I hear.
What I was gonna say though, Luke, is I've never experienced like anything like the Central Flyway, and I still like duck hunting. You know, I often don't even get a full, like limit, and I still like it.
Nope.
It's because like you like that solitude of like sitting there freezing your ass off.
Yep.
And
I like to torture
like,
myself. I don't know. I just that's me. I will intentionally go back 7 miles off the beaten path or take the river and then go in however many miles and just be completely by myself, with a creek crossing and just wait for them deer to come right through and then struggle fest all the way back out through the muck with that deer. And the whole time I may be huffing and puffing, but I got a smile on my face that you couldn't slap off me if you wanted to.
That's
so
awesome,
I like all of the parts except for the sitting still for 12 hours.
That would be a tough one.
It's not, I mean, I don't always sit still for 12 hours. It's not like I'm just a statue in a tree. If I feel that, by 10 o'clock stuff hasn't moved or I saw something that was further away and I know it bedded down, I might try and sneak right up on it to where it's in its midday bedding and I get, 70, 80 yards away in hopes that he comes and walks right past me in a little bit. And in the meantime, I might take a pee and like look around and see what else is there. It's not like I'm 12 hours in the same spot in a tree. I have done that. That does suck. Then it's a mental game. And at that point it's like 15. I give myself 15-minute increments. I mean, I've got ADD anyway. I'm all over the place. So I easily get distracted, but at the same time it's torture. So if I see a squirrel, I'll watch a squirrel for 20 minutes and forget what I'm even doing and then be like, "Oh yeah, I'll have a cup of coffee now." Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting because like I said, growing up in Kansas, although I didn't deer hunt a lot out there, I think it was only a couple times that we got up in the tree stands, and which tree stands back then really weren't tree stands. They were just a weekend project, right? Throw a few boards up and call it good. But there are mental toughness to be able to do that kind of hunting. People talk about the Western style hunting is mentally tough, physically tough. It's probably more physically than mental, I think. Where tree stand hunting in the Midwest, that's a lot of mental toughness to be able to sit there for 8-10 hours.
You got to be either mentally tough or really dumb. I'm not saying which one I am, but
I don't have it. We've talked about it a lot on this podcast, but I prefer, even though I have a lower success rate, I've now shot a few deer stalking them, and it's like so much more rewarding to me.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
My whole thing with that though is out west or even where you're at, you have so much more public land that is roamable where sometimes I only have, maybe a 300 to 500 acre parcel. And there's a lot of other hunters on that I don't want to be the guy. I've had it happen to me. I don't want to be the guy that is continually blowing other people's hunts, or a guy sets up, 20 yards away from a bedding area. I don't know it's a bedding area, and I go stalking through there and kick everything out. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that guy because it sucks when you're that guy and you put in the time and the work and you got in there to do that. So if I'm hunting on a parcel like that, a lot of times you don't have the room or the opportunity. There's one right down the road from my house that I don't hunt much because they've culled it. But at the same time, a couple of years ago, it started getting pretty decent until they culled it again. But it was only the opportunity. It was 200 acres. It's some type of farm something. I can't remember what it is, but it's a tax program that leases the land from the farmers in order to be able to hunt it, and they keep it as a preserve. So technically the farmer still owns it, but they're leasing it and giving it recreational access. And with that, only 3 hunters are allowed to hunt that whole entire parcel.
Oh, wow.
Because it's that small. They know. And at the same time, if a guy sets up on something that's on the edge of a field and you got to go across that field to get to where you want to hunt, I mean, you just ruined his hunt.
Yeah.
I don't like being that guy.
Yeah.
It's happened to me. I've had some randomly weird stuff happen in a tree stand. And I think a lot of it is people are afraid of the dark. Even as adults, they truly have never gotten over that fear. They haven't. I mean, you see so many guys coming in at first light, trying to be quiet and breaking every twig along the way. And I've been set up for an hour already in my tree stand, you know, or even sometimes an hour and a half. And I'm already just kind of going insane, waiting for daylight. Just like my mind is at the edge of breaking, and I'm like, all right, we're almost there. It's almost here. It's going to happen, you know? And then at the same time, I'm scanning around, and it's like light starts just hitting, and I see things start popping in the forest, and I'll be looking on the forest floor and on the trees like, ooh, is that a mushroom? What's that growing over there? You know, like, and here comes some guy walking past. Yeah.
Joe, did you ever do that? I've had in this same discussion here, I've had it where I went out to go duck hunting and set up on the side of a lake and wrecked a deer hunter's hunt. And it's like, who has supremacy? I just like, I don't get it, you know, because like we're all hunters.
Right.
If you're like up by me, there's a lot of cedar swamps. That's like a good spot where people go. But unfortunately, they're usually right next to lakes where ducks like to hang out. So who's like the bad guy in that? I mean, I feel like I had one guy get mad at me one time, and I was like, "You're set up literally right at a popular duck hunting spot."
Yeah.
Right.
You know, like and it's the last day of duck season. Like that was my scenario. So like who's the bad guy?
Nobody.
Yeah, I mean it's unfortunate because really nobody wins, right, in those situations. And I think it's, you know, I think about my upbringing. You know, my dad was one that he taught hunter safety from an early age on. As a matter of fact, you know, when I was in Cub Scouts, my dad was the instructor, and we would actually do a 2-day training course that he would put on out at Wyandotte County Lake, and you would go through 2 days of actual, not classroom, but actually hands-on type training. And I can remember all the way back then, I was a little kid, you know, I was 10 or 11 years old, but them talking about the proper hunting etiquette, right? You know, and how you work with other hunters. And it's, you know, I think a lot of people probably unfortunately just don't know what proper etiquette is. You know, you see these things on social where it's just like, you know, a guy will be in a tree stand and somebody else will come to that tree next to him and literally crawl up that tree. And it's like, wait a second, guy, you know, I've had people out there before where I'm sitting on the side of a mountain. I've had a guy, you know, 15 feet above me just decide he's going to sit down right there. And it's just like, you want to get upset with them, you know, it's just, but what good does that really do? Right. So it's just like, well, I'm going to go find another spot. But I feel like, man, etiquette probably needs to be taught more or discussed more as people are getting their licenses, because space is not getting less crowded. It's getting more crowded, and conflict is probably going to get more real more often because more people are getting outdoors, which is great because there's less space. But I think, you know, if people actually had some discussions while they were getting their licenses or training around it, it would probably help things a little bit.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe not.
No, I think so. I've had a couple in encounters to where I was already set up in a tree where I wanted to be, nice little secluded field, no cars at the trailhead at all. And here I see a headlamp just bouncing along and a metal clanging. Guy's wearing a climber tree stand on his back, and it's not secured very well.
Oh, yeah.
Another reason why I like the initial Ascent pack, just going to throw it out there. You could secure just about anything to it. But here's this guy, and he's clanging along with this climber. And then, so I get down. I'm like, I don't want him set up there, but I will move if he's going to be adamant about it. So I walk over to him, and I'm like, hey, I've been set up here for like a half hour. You know, you're making a lot of noise. I didn't see a car. How did you get here? You know, there's no car at this trailhead for this sector of hunting. I said, where did you come from? Oh, lot number 23 or whatever it was. And I'm like, you walked in 2 miles when you could have walked like half a mile. This is what the guy says to me. Just as easy to get here from there as over here. I said, okay. I said, the only difference is if I saw your car here and you were hunting here, I would have went to the next spot. And he goes, well, whatever, I'll move. Okay, thank you. Like, I didn't want a confrontation with him. I mean, you could smell the coffee and everything else on his breath from about 30 feet away, the Marlboros and coffee. But nonetheless, like, he did move and he went a little further on. I don't think he went very far, though, because I could hear him getting down.
Yeah.
You know, in the morning at like 10 o'clock. And what did he do? He pushed 2 deer right to me. I didn't shoot him, but nonetheless, he pushed 2 deer right to me. So,
yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it happens, and, you know, you try and be as polite as whatever, but it's like, if people would just understand, hey, if your car is in this lot, hunt on that hunting area, and you wouldn't have, you know, as many encounters as walking 2 miles when you could walk a half a mile. Like, just certain things like that. It sucks, but I think you're right. Education is huge, and honestly, we need to be civil with each other, though, because if we're not, the infighting that goes on between hunters already about trad and crossbow and every other little petty thing that doesn't matter. I mean, that's what's going to divide us, is because we're going to fall within amongst ourselves and just fall peril to whatever happens to, you know, legislation or everything, because we're too blindsided by fighting.
Mm-hmm. No, very true. Well said. I think it's, you know, it's a small community, but it's a big community in the same breath, right? And it's, you know, we want people to be able to enjoy it, you know, for generations to come. And if we don't stay united on these topics, then it just is so much easier to divide us, right? And we lose. Everybody loses in that, including the wildlife. So, yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I always the one that I'm curious about Luke answering though is you know how much I like squirrel hunting. You know, but oftentimes, you know, same woods as deer.
Yep.
Right. So like, what do you think about that? You know, like me walking through, I like squirrel hunting. I'm allowed to legally do it. I have a dog. I have a squirrel dog. You know, he's running around off leash barking. You know.
Here's my thing on that. Like, if it's an area to where it's common, you know what I'm saying, for squirrel hunters to be passing through, it's not going to affect the deer behavior as bad as if it's a random act that completely drives that deer out, or you go directly through deer bedding. Now, like, if it was me, I'd try and be cognizant of the fact that, like, okay, this is deer bedding or the time of day I'm doing it. Most hunters, like deer hunters anyway, it seems that, I mean, I'll try and stay all day, but the majority of them don't. They'll get out for like 2, maybe 3 hours in the morning and then leave. Mm-hmm. So you've got that entire midday window, which is probably perfect for squirrels anyway, because that's when first light, they're the most active. But with a squirrel call, Clay, you can agitate them. I know you don't use them, which I find ironic, because you always talk about, like, oh, we had a hard day squirrel hunting. And I'm like, how is this possible? Unless the population is just so much less. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you guys don't have as many conifer trees. So when I say we have a hard day squirrel hunting, it's because all the oaks are mixed in right next to hemlocks and cedars and pines.
So it's tight quarters. Yeah, okay.
And so you're like, you might find like a great oak tree, but it's like all the squirrels immediately run to the hemlock or whatever, you know, and you're just like, damn it. Like,
once again, you had that squirrel tail call, and they're just going to start flicking that tail at you and chirping, chirp, chirp, chirp. And then bam, that's squirrel.
Maybe I give it a try.
Just say.
Yeah. But I mean, we shoot enough squirrels. I think last year got like 40 or something between me and my son.
Oh wow, that is a bunch.
Yeah. I like them, but
I like
eating
squirrel. Squirrel's good eating.
Yeah. Before we got on the call, though, you were saying how you used to shoot them with the flooded timber. I would love to have you tell that story on the podcast.
Oh, I mean, we did. So back to where we'd go duck hunting down around Neosho, Kansas, we would hunt a lot of flooded timber down there. And it wasn't super deep. You know, you're probably knee high. But we'd be back in the flooded tent. We shot a lot of woodies in there, man. Just full of, it was so cool watching them fly in and out of there. But there'd be squirrels all over back in there. Things were quiet. We'd definitely shoot some squirrels. So yeah, I mean, for us, squirrel hunting, not like you, Clay. You sound like you're like an expert squirrel hunter. Yeah, for us, it was just more, not so much out of boredom, but just opportunity presented itself. And one of the things, my dad always taught us is you shoot it, you eat it, no matter what. So, I've eaten a lot of squirrel over the years, and a lot of people probably don't know it, but squirrel is actually really good. You got to clean it pretty quick. But yeah, squirrel's good. So yeah, flooded timber, duck hunting. Yeah, Neosho, Kansas.
That's awesome.
Just gave a secret spot away for squirrel hunters.
Nice.
See,
But
that's,
yeah. Oh, you had a dog, you said, that retrieved him though.
Oh yeah, we had dogs down there, so they would go and
Okay.
get the squirrels. So oh yeah, absolutely.
That's funny. So did you never had like your dog come back like, what's this? This ain't a duck.
What are you doing to me? No, the main thing with the dog was, trying to teach it not to eat the squirrel, right? That was because, dogs want to, that's a little different than the duck. So we were always trying to get it out of its mouth quick enough before it destroyed it.
Yeah.
But oh yeah, they would go get them.
So I'm really possibly entertaining the notion of like getting a new dog.
Yeah.
already?
Yeah, because he's just like he's a little much for my lifestyle right now. Like basically I have a mountain feist. He's a good dog, he's a loving dog. But I don't have like 100 acres for him to run on, like 20 miles in a day. And that's how much energy he has. And so like I really love duck hunting, and I've been hearing a lot about like duck dogs, but the thing that scares me is like I've met some people who've like gotten labs that are scared of guns. And I
yeah,
don't
gun
know.
shy, sure.
Yeah. And
I think that can happen with any dog, but yeah.
But I just like the demeanor a little bit better of those dogs. Like they lay down. Like I just told the story like recently, but my dog will like legitimately come to work with me. I'll have him on a leash and he will stand there for 6 straight hours.
Yeah, lab's not going to do that. You might get 6 seconds out of a lab.
Yeah, so like that's why I'm kind of like tossing around the idea like maybe I just try to sell this dog because he's just a little too much.
Too much.
I've had him for a little less than a year, and I'm just like, okay, man, like I just don't know if I can keep up with this lifestyle,
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of labs growing up, and then my most recent dog was a lab. He's probably the best waterfowl dog I've had. I mean, he's on one of our videos when we were selling the decoy hauler. But he would crawl up in the tree and get out on the branch. He would literally crawl about 6 feet up a tree and get on the big branch and lay there until we shot, and then he'd jump off it. He did that all on his own.
No way.
But I would say the toughest dog I've ever had, hands down, for waterfowl was my Chessie. She was a waterfowl machine, and there was no quit in her. And going back in Kansas waterfowl hunting, I would say it was colder there than hunting in Idaho. Back there, you're breaking ice constantly, trying to keep it open, and my Chessie would not quit. It was the toughest dog. Now they stink horribly bad. I mean, they do. Chessies have an oil in them, and you don't bathe them because that oil helps keep them insulated and warm. Man, do they stink! But they're a loyal dog. They're probably more of a one-person dog. My Chessie tolerated my wife. Didn't really care for my wife, but it was a one-person dog. Where a lab, right, loves everybody for the most part.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I don't think you could go wrong with a Chessie if you're looking for a true waterfowl dog.
Yeah, but I got 3 kids, and
Oh yeah. Well, then maybe a lab's a better choice then.
Yeah. I tell you what, it's like that was originally like I was like before I ever like I was like I'm gonna buy a house and then I'm gonna get some kind of hunting dog.
Yeah.
And I was like maybe I should get a duck dog, and then I was like one of my friends was like, "Hey, I got a mountain feist for sale," and I was like, "Oh, well, I'm a high energy human, like I go, I mean, I am, and I run all the time, and I do all this stuff, but it's just like he has no chill. There is no, but I'm like, where's the off button on this thing? Like he's just
maybe just start feeding him CBD or something, like see him
calm him down a bit.
Yeah, no, it's just like he doesn't. What he needs is like he needs me to not live in a downtown environment.
Yeah, maybe
he needs room to run around, and he also needs his balls taken off of his body because
that slow things down. It tends to.
Yeah, but yeah, I didn't know about all the work and everything like that would be involved with getting a duck dog, and I know that there's a lot of that goes into it.
Yep.
Right.
But I think that's part of the fun, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I was going to say when Luke was talking about is just for me the training aspect of the dog, is equally as fun as the hunting, right? Doing all of that, and it's as long as somebody gives 15 minutes a night consistently, there's some really good training books out there, some good methods that aren't the back in the day was you'd beat a lab, which I don't agree with that. It just takes consistency, and it's so much fun. I think that was one of the real joys of it is it's you take a dog from a pup, you train it for a couple years, you actually get out, and then crazy story, my lab that unfortunately we had to put down last December, his first retrieve was my oldest boy Brody's first duck that he shot. So I've got a pretty epic picture. It was his first duck, the dog's and my son's. But to me, watching that and experiencing that's equally as fun as going out and watching him harvest their first deer.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool because you spend all that time training that dog and then actually getting it out into the field where you got hand signals and whistles and all that, and seeing that dog respond to those calls, and then finding the duck that is buried itself down in whatever, and then the dog comes out with it. I mean, it's just like that's awesome.
And I've seen so many of those videos where they dive down in the water, and like and I'm like, how did that dog know that the thing was there?
I know, it's crazy, man.
Yeah,
it's awesome watching it do it. So
yeah, I harvest wild rice, and one of the things that always pops up in the rice is teal. And it's crazy. I mean, they'll get like 4 or 5 feet away, or you'll get that close to them in the canoe, and before they shoot up, and they'll scare the crap out of you. You're standing like as the push polar, and you're like, you're, oh my God, you almost flip the boat. And one thing I've always thought though is like, it would be literally impossible to do that hunting without a dog in the wild rice because of the fact that like, it's so dense and thick, and I just like don't know how anything but a dog could go and find something that you shoot in there.
Yeah, you've got to have them for those kind of environments for sure, no question.
Yeah, but so your packs though, you are going to eventually re-release this canvas or the decoy bag.
The decoy hauler.
Because my decoy bag, it sucks. I mean, it literally said all the thing that you outlined. It's always hitting me in the back of the knees and
Yep. Yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe there's life there. We'll have to see. For those folks that actually ended up getting it that were waterfowlers, man, they just praise it upside down the other because we've all experienced it at duck hunters. It just decoy bags are terrible. So if you can get that thing up and it carries high, right, and you have the weight on the frame, it was a game changer. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe
that's pretty cool.
Maybe. Never know.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to see what comes out down the line here, and hopefully there's some new things in the future. And it's been awesome talking to you, Joe. It's great listening to the stories and kind of getting to know you and the hunting stories a little better. Always fun, talking. So just if people want to know where they could reach out to you and maybe with questions or anything like that, and where they can find these amazing packs, where can they do all that?
Yeah, so we have our, it's on our website at initialascent.com. We're also working with Go Hunt, Black Ovis, and Shields now. Shields is a local here in Meridian, but Go Hunt, Black Ovis, they have it on their website. Shields for local for the folks if they want to go try it on. We're working with those companies, and then if anybody has any questions, by all means reach out to us. They can email us at info@initialascent, and either Dennis and I will pick it up and get back to them. If they're on our website and they have questions, we've got a chat link in there, so go ahead and hit us up on that. We'll get back to folks. We really try to make our customer service top priority, because we really do appreciate each and every sale. To this day, Dennis and I and Cody, will still write a handwritten note that goes out with every pack, because it's important to us, right? Customer service today to us is really one of the ways we can separate ourselves, and it's just a way for us to say thank you, because we couldn't do this without the support of everybody that said, hey, I'm gonna take a chance on Initial Ascent. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I love it, man.
Yeah, me too. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, it's good visiting with you guys. It's always fun talking with you. So, we'll have to talk a little bit more, about this duck hunting on the Great Salt Lake one of these days. Need to get you both out there on that deal.
I like it.
Awesome.
All right, Joe, we'll talk to you. Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
And once again, thank you so much for listening to the Publicly Challenged podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please subscribe on whatever platform it is you're listening to. Also, if you could leave a review, that would help us out. And you can check us out on Instagram or at publiclychallenged.com. And once again, thank you so much for listening to the show.